live. No more crashing, no more burning.
Well, I can't promise that.
Was anybody actually on when I was talking about the breakdown between Blue Bloods and Boston Blue? Or was that all pre-live?
I think people got about half of that.
Okay. Just to sum up, a conversation, I was explaining to Peter the concept behind the Donnie Wahlberg show, Boston Blue, off of his role on Blue Bloods, all of which came off of a conversation about a phrase that we will not utter on the air. Actually, by your theory, though, we should be uttering it on the air, right?
No.
So just a way to make something uncool is to let people like me say it repeatedly. So we are back with our power rankings. This will be the last power rankings of the regular season. We're not going to do a power rankings next week, but I will have a power rankings at the end of the year, at the end of the postseason, where I'll have my final season power rankings, and we'll compare them to how I did preseason, where teams moved up and down. This will not be focused on playoffs because Wednesday, Mike DeMoro and I will be in, and we will break down everything playoffs, and we'll have a much more detailed look at the postseason. I'm going to focus on the power rankings in this week, but before anything else, congratulations to the East Lyme girls volleyball team. We had a lot of state championship opportunities. They got it done. They brought it home. A big win for Coach Biggs and those girls. Congratulations. Heartbreaking losses for both the Stonington and East Lyme boys soccer teams. East Lyme in the semifinals, Stonington in the finals.
So I was watching the Stonington game while I was editing the Fitch New London highlights, and it was like, oh, they're going to squeak it into OT, and they gave up that goal, and it was a great goal.
Great.
With like 30 seconds left, which is, that's a tough way to lose.
Brady O'Neill's quote kind of summed it up, which is just, the idea that it's sports. Sports can be really cruel. But you know what? If distance and time and history and age has taught me anything, it's that you appreciate the losses more as you move away from them. And there will come a time 20 years from now when this Stonington team talks about that loss, and they'll talk about it with pride and fondness because great player, great team that they lost to. They'll look back at it fondly. Right now, it just feels awful. Okay, I want to say first off, thank you to Killingly for making one thing easy every week since we started. They were the preseason number one. They haven't gone anywhere. They just put up 63 more points against Waterford, which means that is 3 straight games of over 60 points. And 5 of their last 7 over 60 points. They are on pace to break the state record for average points per game. They play Woodstock on Thanksgiving, and based on Woodstock's points that they have given up to some teams, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Killingly is a strong favorite to break the state record for points per game.
Now, the wrinkle in that is the total points in the season record is held by Ansonia in a season where they played one more game.
Correct.
14 games in the season, I guess because there was an NVL championship that also happened. So the total points in a season, including the postseason, might be a reach, but is a possibility. That's how good this team is.
It is. They could get it in the regular season. If you count their potential 3 postseason games, in 13 games they do have a chance. Obviously, you'd think in the postseason your points come down.
Probably.
So it would be a challenge. But the average points per game of over 50 will go to Killingly almost assuredly. Sliding up to number 2 with a very impressive 63-point effort of their own, the Ledyard Colonels. They are the only team with 2 losses. They are in the postseason. They are playing for a seed in a very good division, which we'll focus on Wednesday. But they're unlike a lot of teams. They're getting healthier at the right time. Cal Cassavant back in, and if you want to check out this week's Grade 8, you'll see how he cemented his way into the history books coming back this week. 63-24 over a Stonington team that is, if nothing else, super entertaining week to week.
I give that young Stonington group a lot of credit and look forward to seeing what they do in the future. Ledyard is going to be super interesting because it's a little hard, like they have achieved a lot of great stuff. A couple, like the one loss is a little bit of a head scratcher, and you wonder, like, as they go forward, is there a bad matchup somewhere for them?
Yeah, so the loss in the monsoon to Bacon Academy is the weird loss for Stonington. Ledyard, the loss to Waterford is going to be something that they sit and look at and say, how did we lose that game? I still go back to reminding everyone Jordan Favory did not play in the second half of the Waterford game. And what happened, if you watch the Waterford game, which I did because we were there, Ledyard went through a stretch. At the first half, Waterford could not stop Ledyard offensively. Ledyard went through a stretch between a turnover and some penalties and stuff. They went through a stretch of possessions where they didn't score. So nothing against Miles Streckfus or their Titus Streckfus, Miles' younger brother. See, always a game day favorite, the Streckfuses. Titus is he did very well, but losing Favory in the second half of that game. So Ledyard at number 2 over a big Stonington team. Just like I said, Killingly's going to set the all-time points record. I'm going to be interested to see at the end of the year where Ledyard's rushing yards rank in the all-time history books for the school, because I think they are probably close to some of those great teams that Ledyard has had.
Yeah, and so going into Thanksgiving, by the numbers, probably a favorite, but who knows? Playing a Fitch team that's doing a lot of things really well. That rivalry for the sword is always a huge motivator. We said we weren't going to talk playoffs, and here I am talking playoffs. I guess we're
alluding to is all right. Mild talk.
The interesting thing in that game is based on the potential matchups and what happens with everyone else. Like, you don't know going into that game, is a win or a loss better for you in the long run.
Yeah.
Now, I don't expect any team to go into a Thanksgiving Day game thinking, oh, well, maybe we should pump the brakes here and try to improve our playoff matchup.
Well, what's interesting is I believe right now Ledyard, with a win on Thanksgiving, still probably can't get higher than 6, and with a loss, probably can't drop lower than 8. So they're like, well, we can't drop lower than 8, but like they're really kind of stuck in the middle, and everyone's talking about getting Nanawag as their opening up point. That's what you want. I'm gonna pump the brakes on that in a moment, but Double S is really good. There's a lot of really good teams in there, and I think matchup-wise, right, is going to be fascinating. And I don't know that where Ledyard's going to land in that. But for now, no one's playing better, and they're getting healthier. Moving up a spot to number 3 after a 33-0 shutout over Windham, the NFA Wildcats. You know, we said we're not going to let the Killingly game define anybody. They did exactly what they were supposed to do in a get healthy game against Windham. They come right out, throw that 33-0 shutout. And sort of similarly, when we looked at Waterford and when they had that chance at Windham and the game was ugly, NFA did exactly what you'd want them to do. They came right out and dominated that game, and I think they're playing great. They've got New London on Thanksgiving Day, and they're winning in. They're going to get in to Double L at 6-4 if they can win that game.
So what we really ought to do here is do a line plot over time of where teams are. And NFA over the season, their power rankings plot is going to be a U-shape.
Yeah.
Because we were high on them in the beginning of the season. They lost some games that we thought maybe they shouldn't have lost, and now they've got themselves right and are back kind of where we expected them to be.
Now, I don't know that – so, you know, teams looking at these power rankings going, can we finish higher than this? Like, what would it take for someone to finish number 1 other than Killingly? Well, Killingly would have to lose, and Ledyard would have to – and ironically, they could. Ledyard would have to win and go farther than Killingly in the postseason. NFA would have to find a way to win a double L game on the road against a powerhouse in order for them to. But so there may not be a lot more advancement up from some of these spots that these teams are in, but as we get down pat, in terms of how do you finish second, third, fourth, fifth, like there's a lot of room. Killingly will be tough to bump out of the 1, but Ledgerwood has a chance to finish the year as the number 2 team in the power rankings. Fitch has a chance to finish as in the top 4 with NFA, all dependent on. I am going to take into consideration postseason runs. A loss in the postseason will not hurt you in the power rankings, but wins in the postseason could certainly help you in the power rankings. So moving up to number 4, the Fitch Falcons, as seen here Saturday on game day with I don't want to dismiss that domination over New London because New London's been competitive with a lot of teams this year, even in losses. This one felt non-competitive. I think no one did a better job of minimizing New London's weapons the way that Fitch did. Mike Ellis talked about it in the post game. He said they were afraid of New London's speed. He said no team was more dangerous on broken plays than New London was, and I thought you witnessed it in practice where they specifically worked on things to minimize New London's speed and specific players, and they executed it. Probably the most complete game Fitch has had this year. 1 penalty, 1 turnover. They're very dangerous if that's the case.
Well, that's the thing. The knock on Fitch for the big part of the season before this was mistakes and penalties, and you didn't see that. You kind of know what they have on offense. Their defense looked very good.
So here's the thing, and the NFA folks may not want to hear this, but I'm going to say this. You got number 2 versus number 4 in the power rankings playing each other on Thanksgiving Day. If Fitch were to somehow dominate that game and win, they absolutely could jump to number 2 in the power rankings because that would put them in the postseason where they're on the cusp of being in the postseason either way as well, but they're right there in that spot. And they're getting thinner every week in terms of like they've lost a lot of kids to injury and stuff like that. But you look at Porter Carter and Sean Bussey and the emergence this week of Cameron Lee Fry. We've seen McBride. We've seen Spader. Like they might only be relying on it's the same. That group hasn't left. So those guys have been all year long the guys. And I feel like Carter is as comfortable in the offense as you can be. Bussey is getting better and better every week, and they're improving with the McBrides, Lee Fries, Spaders. Every week they find the matchup and they use it to their advantage. Fitch might, and every time I say this, I always get burned by it. Poor teams, I'm like the jinx. Fitch might be in the best spot to sort of gel at the right time. I look at Ledger getting healthy at the right time. If Fitch can duplicate a clean game, that Thanksgiving Day game should be spectacular.
If they can figure out and replicate, was it focus during practice? Was it their focus day of game? All of the above. If they can replicate that this week, next week, the following week, they could make a nice little run.
I agree. All right, moving up all the way to number 5 from number 7, the surprise of the week, the East Lyme Vikings. The surprise not because they beat Griswold. I think we talked about it. We thought Griswold was a favorite. We knew Griswold needed to win 2 to get in. I'm not going to talk about this from a Griswold negative. I'm going to talk about this from an East Lyme positive. 42-7 in a complete victory over a very good Griswold team is the win that East Lyme can circle and say, and if they can follow it up with a win on Thanksgiving, they'll come out of this year. This year will have been a rousing success for them.
Who was it week 1 that said this East Lyme team is going to surprise some people?
I did. I said that. You were very high on NFA. I was all over East Lyme. If I remember, the 2 teams that you spoke of were NFA and East Lyme, and I think you were right on both.
It maybe took them a little while to get there. I mean, some of that is a function of the schedules that they play. Griswold playing in D3 didn't have quite as many of those high strength of schedule games. I don't know if that's a factor in that loss to East Lyme. Were they not quite as good as we thought they were? I think Griswold's still pretty good.
I think Griswold's still pretty good too. I think the surprise. So the two games this year that have sort of most surprised me was Griswold's 14-0 shutout of Ledyard, where we thought Ledyard, coming off of a domination physically the week before of NFA, we thought Ledyard was going to be this dominant force, and Griswold out-physicaled them. For East Lyme to then do that to them was very surprising to me. So this Griswold team has been on the plus and minus side of my most kind of surprising result of the year, because I didn't see them getting physically dominated the way they did. And again, any given week, weird things can happen. This was a dud. That's all. And they may rebound with a huge win on Thanksgiving. They might still get into the postseason. They might still make a run. Like, things are on the table for Griswold. But there's no way to look at this game and not be caught off guard, because I don't think anybody saw 42-7.
I'd like to claim that I did, but no, I don't think I did.
And that's a lot. So, number 6, I'm going to drop in the aforementioned Griswold Wolverines. I originally had Waterford in this spot, sticking at 6. I literally changed my mind right now while we were having this conversation, because I don't want to make that loss to East Lyme define their season. They're still 6-3. They're still a very good team. They have a chance this week when they go up against Valley to beat another 6-win team, which could get them big points, and they might still have a chance at making the postseason. They are on the outside looking in right now, so they should be super motivated. I'm not going to pretend that I'm happy about the loss to East Lyme, because I think that it was you got to be. I mean, no one's more disappointed than Griswold, right? So, like, me heaping more on them, no one's more disappointed than they are. All they can do is turn it around for this week and play a solid game this week, but I fully expect them to do that.
Yeah, and let's move on to your next pick, because I kind of want to talk about these two in tandem.
So that would be Waterford then, dropping down to 7.
So I feel like if we if we allowed ourselves to have a tie, that maybe that's the appropriate thing here.
Yes.
Because I think you're right. It doesn't make sense to drop Griswold from 2 to 7. It also doesn't make sense to drop Waterford from 6 to 7 after they were within 2 scores of Killingly in a game that we chalked up
Yes.
As a sure blowout.
You are 100% right, and I felt that way. That's why I had Waterford. So I had Waterford originally at 6, because I had said Killingly games can't hurt you. They can help you. I think Waterford acquitted themselves really well. 28-14, 42-28, then Killingly pulls away. That's like a lot to like. If I'm Waterford, there's a lot to be happy about, putting up 28 points against Killingly. So I'm only dropping them the one spot because I can't just advocate dropping a team from 2 to 7, especially when they have 6. They're still 6-3. They're still one of the best records in the conference. So I agree with you. If I could put a tie, so I'm going to say this to anyone who's actually watching. If you're actually watching, 6 and 7 are interchangeable.
What was that?
6-7. 6-7. That's right. 54-year-old guy, 6'7". Can we make it uncool yet, please?
So then on paper on Thanksgiving, East Lyme is a favorite, question mark, but this seems like one of those games where throw 2 darts at the wall and whatever numbers they land on, it could be the result.
My instinct, my gut tells me this has got like 42-38 written all over it, right? These offenses appear to both be playing really well right now. Of the 2 defenses, I can't judge anyone off of Killingly. East Lyme, that's...
Yeah, I mean, East Lyme, if you're shutting down Griswold's offense, that speaks well of the East Lyme defense.
So, but because it's a rivalry game, because it's Waterford East Lyme, there is no score that would surprise me. Would 10-7 surprise me more than 48-35? Yeah. But I think this one's going to be a really good one. I think Ledyard Fitch and Waterford East Lyme both have the potential to be classic Thanksgiving Day games. So hopefully the crowds will turn out and support that. Staying at number 8, even though they had a beautiful win over Amistad, 45-8, are the 6-3 Valley Panthers. And Valley, you are a victim of nothing more than sort of your schedule and where these other teams are right now, because I might be underselling Valley, and they're going to have a chance in their game against Griswold to show that, right? If they could beat Griswold, first of all, if they beat Griswold, it would be the best win of the year for them. But it would also tell me that we've been selling low on them all year long. 6-3 is 6-3. That's a great. You can't be much better than they are right now, and I think we need to make sure that they understand that we see Valley.
Yeah, I mean, and they honestly might be a victim of us not seeing their games in person and in full. We're judging based on the results, and they seem to keep getting better and better. Unfortunately for them, they won their game this week and dropped farther in the CIAC rankings because they beat a team with no wins. Yeah. So they're actually farther out of the playoff mix now. But staying put at number 9, Stonington, off of a tough loss. But again, I'm not going to, if the team's number 2 in my power rankings for a reason, I'm not going to get too hard on Stonington for it. I will say that I'm very encouraged. We talked about the future of the young Stonington team. Another thing that number 7 and number 9 have in common, we talked about young quarterbacks. And I think Chase Nolda coming on the heels. Rassicot did it early. I think Waterford's got a couple of underclassmen quarterbacks who can throw the football. Nolda has demonstrated that he has the chance to be a really special young quarterback as well. I think Thomas in Stonington has a chance to be a really special quarterback as he continues to mature. Yeah, so there's a couple teams here. Stonington, Waterford relies on a bunch of upperclassmen also. New London also. There are some really promising classes of underclassmen that 1-2 years from now I think we're going to be really impressed by. So before I drop in my number 10 team, because they are debuting, I want to give a shout-out to some of the teams that are not in it. So Montville, the Wolves, playing better, definitely have a chance if they could win their game against Wyndham. That's going to be live on game day. They have a chance to crack the top 10 to finish the year with their third win. That would be a thing. Montville playing better. Wyndham, similarly, has been a struggle for them. They have a chance to get a win against a Montville team. That would be interesting to see how those two compete with each other. New London's on the struggle bus right now, but I can't say enough about how young they actually are. We almost never do a game where the quarterback is a freshman, the wide receiver is a freshman, the other wide receiver's a sophomore, the running back's a sophomore. That's just a lot of youth in really important positions. Now, New London's going to have their original starting quarterback back for Thanksgiving, from what I understand. But what Carmelo Sylvester did this year should not go unnoticed. To not play that position and then get dumped into that starting lineup right off the rip and have to try to that's a kid who should have been the JV quarterback and spent a year developing as a quarterback. To get thrown into that mix, I still maintain the future is very bright at New London. I hope that if there's a New London football player watching this right now, I hope you embrace the idea that playing for New London is special, because it is. And the only way it's going to be special is if you embrace that it's special. In other words, you control that. Playing for New London is an amazing thing. I hope you guys
realize that you need to rally together as a young group and try to figure out a way to be better next year.
And as far as their status in the power rankings for this year, I can't tell if their performance this year is suffering because of this, but the coaching staff is already focusing on next year.
Yes.
Like and it's maybe it could be seen as a little unfair to this year's class of players to say this year doesn't matter. We're going to get better for next year. These kids want to win this year as well, but I think they're accepting that they're in a tough spot. I mean, there was 25 kids on that sideline.
Yeah.
So it's a small team in terms of numbers. It's a young team, and when the coaches are looking to where they want to be a year from now, that might take a little bit of the focus off of results right now.
I agree.
And that's not an ideal situation, but sometimes that's a reality.
Yes.
And you have to have this as a 1 year, 2 year plan, which is the opposite of what most of these other teams are thinking about. Like, let's get better for Friday.
Yeah, they're right. I mean, I think Coach Ruffin said it like, New London's going to make a jump next year. We're going to make a huge jump next year because they're playing too many kids otherwise. So that leaves number 10. Now, I don't know that I've ever said this, which is hold the bacon. Never in my life have I asked for bacon to be removed, but Bacon, you're going to take a step out for 1 week as the Woodstock Academy Centaurs make their appearance. Now, they're going to make their appearance, and then they get to play Killingly. So that's their reward. But Woodstock has played better and better every week. And they did what we asked them to do. They went and they thumped Montville, and they were a couple of scores away from being probably closer to 500 and definitely worth in. To Bacon Academy, they have Ram on Thanksgiving in the battle for the rail. And if they win that game, I believe they'll finish 500. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to go on a limb right now. Bacon Academy, if you win your game against Ram, you will be in the final power rankings. I'm going right there. You will if you win that game.
That is a dangerous promise to make.
I mean, I don't care. I'll find a way. All right, you'll be in that top 10. It's kind of hedging because if they win and finish 500 and Woodstock loses to Killingly, I could always justify a little slide. But Stonington has a very tough game against Westerly, right? Valley's playing Griswold. Waterford, he's like the bottom four in the power rankings. All are, I would suggest, underdogs of some kind in their Thanksgiving games. Maybe you could argue Waterford is a push with East Lyme, but like certainly Valley, Stonington, and Woodstock are all underdogs. So Bacon finishing 500, you're in the power rankings. That's it. Heard it here first.
I'm glad to see Woodstock cracking this top 10. I think they've been a team on the bubble, and they do have some quality wins this year that they can look at and build on for next year. I mean, were a team maybe a little over their head in Division II, similarly to Wyndham. So not having the benefit of playing a lighter schedule that some of the teams ahead of them were able to play.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. You and I have looked at certain teams and said, what would they be like if they had been here or had they been here from a division standpoint? And yeah, schedule, right? You're never as good as your first two games versus Appalachian State, and you're never as bad as your game at Alabama. And I think that's for a couple of our teams, especially the Alliance. You look at Killingly had a huge win over Bishop Hendricken, right? Ledyard loses to a playoff team. NFA had, while not great teams necessarily, they played Killingly early. They played Xavier and Trumbull, who are reputable even in down years. So like Fitch had that game at Amity. Like those early season games for some of those top teams kind of set the tone, certainly for NFA. I think schedule definitely drives some of this, but I also think that the next power rankings is going to be at the end of the season, when the season is done. Our final power rankings will include your postseason. So looking at the power rankings right now, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 teams are likely in, and 2 other teams have potential to get in. Realistically, I think 4, max 5. So for those teams, your postseason could certainly affect the power rankings. For the other teams, your Thanksgiving Day games will affect your power rankings, and we'll have a final how'd I do over the course of the year.
And let's just be honest in terms of what these teams care about. Thanksgiving and postseason are up here, and power rankings are somewhere down here.
I fully expect,
as it should be.
I fully expect that, making the postseason and your postseason run should, be thoughts 1 through 8, and Thanksgiving should be 9 and 10, and power rankings should not factor in. But that's just how I'm going to move forward. Power rankings will continue, of course, throughout the winter with basketball. Wednesday, Mike DeMoro and I will be here talking about the postseason in football, getting very specific. However, tomorrow we will be putting out a major announcement for basketball from game day. So look for us tomorrow with a major announcement that will affect the basketball